Into. Hey everybody, I'm Maggie UMD, functional and holistic medicine physician and creator of the Transform protocol and the Facebook group Transform Autoimmune Disease Naturally. Today we are live and we are talking about a hot topic all around what is the autoimmune timeline. And I think it's really important to talk about because that we talk to at least 50 to 100 of you every single week. And this question pops up, and it seems to me that there seems to be a lack of understanding, not just with you, but with your doctors around what autoimmune disease is and the fact that there is an ongoing timeline with autoimmunity. So today I'm going to break the lid wide open, and I want you to stay tuned because as we go on with this, we're going to be bringing on a volunteer's tribute, and we're going to do a live case study on the autoimmune timeline that you're not going to want to miss. Okay. And so, what is an autoimmune timeline? Well, what is the basis of autoimmune disease? First of all, if you're joining us live right now, anybody who's an alumni, go ahead and type in chat. I would love to see in the comments what autoimmune struggles you're overcoming or have overcome. If you're someone that's new to us, I would love for you to tell me about what autoimmune struggles you have in the comments section, whether or not you have a diagnosis. Type it in chat right now. Remember, I love to talk with you. I hate to talk at you. So the more you interact and comment, the more I feed off of it. And the longer I stay on and more teaching I want to give. So I would love for you guys to comment in the comment section before we get started and as we go along. That would be great. So first of all, what is autoimmune disease? Autoimmune disease is where your immune system, which is supposed to protect you, right? Your immune system is supposed to look at something outside your body and says, you're a germ and I'm going to kill you. And that's what it's normally supposed to do. But in autoimmune disease, your body mistakes parts of your body. Notice the plural, parts, not just one, many parts of your body as a germ. And it's actively trying to kill you. So it's an altered immune system that's actively working to try to kill you. And here's the thing. I have a visitor. Here's the thing. Hello, puppy. I love you. Here's the thing about going live. Your puppies will walk in and out. I love that. Here's the thing. If your immune system is actively trying to kill you, let's say it's mistakes. Let's say you have a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis. Is your body just mistaking your joints as a germ and is trying to kill it? No. That is just the one area that we have a blood test for that we can diagnose and say, aha, it's rheumatoid arthritis. But here's the deal. Your immune system is already mistaking your joint as a germ. What's the likelihood it's going to mistake other parts of your body as a germ? 100%. This is why people, no matter what your diagnosis is, will have tons of other symptoms that you think are mysterious that your doctors are going to be scratching their head about, and they're going to have no clue. They're like, I don't know what to help you. I'm going to send you to 1,000 specialists, right? Because there is hundreds, if not thousands, of autoimmune targets of attack in every single individual with an autoimmune disease, including me. I'm a walking, talking example of this I have Hashimoto's, right? I didn't even know I had Hashimoto's for many years. And I didn't, as a physician, I didn't even know I had Hashimoto's for the first 10 years I was sick. And it wasn't until later that I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and mixed connective tissue disorder, neuropathy, you name it, right? Digestive issues, you name it. And the fact of the matter is all of these are just multiple autoimmune targets. Now, here's the issue, is that your immune system is out to destroy your cells. So it's an ongoing process of progressive destruction. Now, I don't know about you, but anything that's under continuous assault at some point will die. When there is cell death, then that equals permanent damage. Okay? Here's the thing. Autoimmunity, up to a certain point, is an invisible illness. Until you perceive symptoms, you don't know that there is a tick-tock timeline of progressive destruction of your cells. So up to a certain point, you may not even know that there's ongoing damage. And at a certain point, there's going to be more and more permanent damage. So, example, and I'll use Shirley that I spoke to earlier today. Shirley may be dealing with Hashimoto's, right? And she did for 20, 30, 40 years. We just spoke to her today. And she was diagnosed, I believe, 20, 30 years ago. but she developed multiple other symptoms, including Raynaud's, which is autoimmune attack against the fingers and her joints, the circulation in her fingers and her toes. And when you look at Shirley's list of symptoms, there's literally 20, 30. And the thing is, problem is that most of the time we diagnose something like Hashimoto's or Raynaud's or, rheumatoid arthritis, you go see the rheumatologist. And they're just concerned about your joints. They're not really looking at this as there's hundreds of other targets that we don't even have blood tests to diagnose yet. And so they focus on what are we going to do for that one target, one symptom, and they medicate or they offer surgery or injections for that one issue. Meanwhile, the time clock is still clicking. And so what you're seeing is anybody here, all of you guys watching right now, you may have one diagnosis. Does this ring true that even though you have that diagnosis, you're adding more and more and more symptoms? And how many of you have experienced that once you got diagnosed with one diagnosis, that you're literally a sitting duck? If you don't intervene or do something different, you're a sitting duck for more and more diagnoses. So how many people have multiple autoimmune diagnoses here? Type in the chat. How many of you have multiple mystery symptoms? Type in the chat. So there's this marching autoimmune timeline. And so what I find is a lot of people we talk to are what I call an ostrich in the sand. So they're like, I have one autoimmune disease, I have rheumatoid arthritis. It's not that bad. And then they put their head in their sand. But the fact is, you put your head in the sand, the autoimmune disease timeline doesn't stop. You can stop with your head in the sand, but autoimmune timeline does not stop. It keeps going, marching and marching. So if there is no intervention, you're finding you're a sitting duck for new diagnosis and new symptoms. And that is a huge part of autoimmune timeline you must understand. And so a lot of people think, I can wait, and I'm like, what are you waiting for? You're waiting for what? Rheumatoid arthritis? You're waiting for what? A mixed connective tissue disorder? You're waiting for Crohn's to happen? Are you waiting? And here's the thing. People think, oh, maybe I can wait. And it's just the early diagnosis. Do you know how many people are diagnosed with Crohn's literally in the emergency room with their first abscess, with the first emergency, needing a bowel resection? Right? So it's not like you get a diagnosis and you're at the beginning of it. Some people are diagnosed at the point when they're in the worst flare of their life and even have permanent damage or have to undergo permanent medical procedures like surgery to remove that organ because they're diagnosed at the time of crisis. So what I'm going to tell you is that you can't be an ostrich in the sand and when you're dealing with autoimmunity, you must understand that the autoimmune time clock keeps ticking. So what I want to do here is just ask all of you. I'm looking in chat right now. We got somebody that is dealing with, look at this, mast cell disorder, right? Which people think is allergic. Guess what? It's part of the autoimmune spectrum. I look at it as an autoimmune disorder. Yeah. And then you look at, someone just had thyroid issues. And years later, Wendy says, RA, I can't make this stuff up, right? So if you don't understand this timeline, people could come under the erroneous conclusion that, oh, I just have this one thing. And the issue is you don't have this just as one thing. You have thousands of things, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So we got someone here with scleroderma. I love it. Please type in the chat what you're struggling with. And so we got a lot of people struggling with multiple autoimmune issues, and the diagnosis doesn't matter. I don't care if it's mast cell, rheumatoid arthritis, POTS, fibromyalgia, whatever it is. The fact of the matter is the diagnosis does not matter to me. But what I know for a fact is that's just the tip of the iceberg, but there's hundreds of other targets that hasn't even been diagnosed or isn't even diagnosable, but you're suffering with it because the autoimmune timeline is there. This progression keeps continuing. And the problem is that people will wait and wait and wait. And Shirley said today, we said, well, why are you calling us? And she said, because I don't want to call you when it's too late. And my question is, what is too late? And she said, when, I'm actually disabled. I don't want to call you when I'm actually disabled and have been in a wheelchair for a year and have lost my job for a year and it's $100,000 in the hole from debt, right? Because I haven't been able to work. Sometimes it can get too late. And so it's really refreshing to talk to someone like Shirley who says, I want to call before it's too late. So I love that fact. And I have a lot of alumni that are watching right now. And we got people dealing with rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, type 2 diabetes. We got Brenda, who's an alumni, who's beating scleroderma, Hashimoto's, and more. I love this. Okay. So we have tons of alumni joining us. All of you, please tell me about you. Now, what I want to do is I wanted to actually teach you guys something about the autoimmune timeline. You will never have a teaching about the autoimmune timeline ever again because no physician I know understands this. And it's not just you, it's the physicians as well. We're at a time when we're looking at, just literacy of reading at about a 12-year-old level in the US. And so if you take that and you extrapolate it to medical literacy, it's even lower than that. And medical literacy is really low in the general public. But I'm going to tell you this, it's not your fault. Medical literacy around autoimmune disease for physicians is really low, which is why I'm going to take some time today. I'm going to invite somebody in. Cindy's going to be joining us, and she's going to be a stand-in for you guys as you guys answer in chat. So I can I can really share this model with you, and I can really teach from a real life case study here. So Cindy, welcome for joining us. Hello. So Cindy, our team spoke to you about 4 months ago.
Yes.
I think it was around November. And so you're a classic example of someone who's in our audience right now. And you're a classic example of someone we talk to every day. So what I'd love to do is I'm going to go ahead and I would love for you to do a quick introduction. I'd love to hear something about you first before we dive into all the medical stuff.
I am married. I have a loving husband and two children.
He's
and a beautiful mom. Yeah, and a beautiful Labradoodle that I just love to death. And I do work a full-time job.
Okay. So Cindy, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to add to the screen a model that I'm going to teach from. I think visually being able to see this is really important. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the autoimmune timeline as demonstrated by Cindy, but she's a stand-in for you guys. So as I'm asking the questions, I want you guys to fill in chat with your own answers. So right now, I'm going to just I'm going to write in the word now. So this is, and we spoke to you 4 months ago. So Cindy, this is speaking from 4 months ago. Where was your now, Cindy? What were your diagnoses? What were some of your symptoms?
Diagnosis, IBS, osteoporosis, psoriasis, psoriatic arthritis, Barrett's esophagus, and I had I was never diagnosed with the connective tissue disorder, but a lot of pain there.
Questionable mixed connective disorder with pain. So this is a myriad. And how many years had you been dealing with it up to this point?
Some of them as long as 32 years. IBS was 35 years ago.
So here's the thing is that when people actually watch these trainings and they actually look back at their autoimmune disease, they're starting to make the connections that, oh my God, all these things are actually autoimmune. And I never ask people, when were you diagnosed? Because that's not when the onset of this was. I always say, when you look at this list of group of symptoms that was there, it's been 32 years. And that's where you were at the now 4 months ago. So let's pretend this is 4 months ago. This is your now 4 months ago.
Yep.
So let's say, and this is a timeline. So we have a timeline here, and this is between now and the future. So let's say there is a foreseeable future when it is possible to reach an ideal state where you actually can reach optimal health. Okay. Let's just say there is a theoretical timeline when, if Cindy makes decisions and do all the right things, she could turn all this around. And realistically, if that were the case, how many years do you think that future is? What do you think that timeline is for you when it would be possible? If you're working on this, what would be the foreseeable possible timeline for you when you could ideally turn all this around?
Yeah, when I was going through all this, I mean, I'm thinking 5 or 10 years because I was dealing with it for so long and things just kept growing and growing. How can you possibly get rid of everything all at once?
Okay, 5 to 10 years. So we'll take an average of 8 years. Okay. So that's the future. Okay. 8 years from now, this is your timeline. Okay. Now let's go to here, which, I'm just going to go with, right here, which would be ideal. Okay. 8 years, you're going to be at your ideal. Tell me like 3 things that would be ideal at that time, would make it ideal health for you. What outcomes would mean it's ideal?
Being pain-free.
Pain-free. What else?
Having a sex life.
Sex life. Husband says yay.
The ability to have movement and work with my hands and stuff.
Work.
Yep.
and full movement.
Yeah. And grow hair.
Oh, hair growth. Okay. So all this would be ideal, be wonderful. And you think if I made some decisions and did all the right things, then in about 8 years' time, I could achieve that. That would be wonderful. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So if you can't reach the ideal and it's just okay. Okay. Let's say it's just okay. Okay. What would just okay be?
Less pain than what I have.
Less pain. Okay. So less pain than current would be okay. What else?
Yep. Some sex.
Occasional sexy time. Occasional sexy times. Okay.
Maybe a part-time job, something that's not so taxing on me.
Part-time job. Okay. And then what would happen? Some hair?
Yeah, I guess
Okay.
some hair.
Okay. Some hair. Okay. The comb over.
Yeah.
Okay. And ideal and okay would be great. Unfortunately, many people with the autoimmune timeline will start going into poor. Okay. In 8 years' time. And when people look back at the last 8 years, you can see that the progression for many people is, getting poorer and poorer. So that's commonly what happens is people get worse. If you were worse than you are now and you were in poor health, what would that look like for you?
Probably would be not able to do a lot of things because of the pain.
So not able to do much.
Right.
So maybe bedbound.
Yeah.
Okay. You said maybe no sex.
Right.
Okay.
And maybe less hair. I could lose more hair.
Maybe you're bald.
Yes.
Okay. So increase a lot of pain. The pain is so much that you're not even going to be able to self-care. So you're going to need a lot more help. You might be bedbound, no sex. You might be bald. All right. Okay. Now here's the fourth line here, which is crisis. Okay. Many people wait till they reach crisis. Okay. And my question for you is, what would crisis look like for you?
I wouldn't be able to do anything.
So
I would be totally dependent on someone else and
dependent on others for care.
Yep.
Okay. Dependent on others. No self-care.
None.
You might need surgeries.
Be very sick. Yep.
Impossible to work. No way to work, which would cause financial
stress
or financial death. Financial stress, right?
Yes.
And in crisis, death is a possibility for some people, for sure, with autoimmunity or any health issue. Okay. So what I see here then is that, absolutely in 8 years' time, you could be going towards an ideal, but at the same time, you could also, in the 8 years, most people find that with the autoimmune timeline, they're more, where are you at, right? Like most people, I want everybody listening right now to think about it. What number are you at right now? Type in chat right now. Where are you at right now? Which line are you on right now? Okay. And what happens is when you look at this timeline, these are the absolute only four possibilities that are going to happen with autoimmune disease. So are you number one? Are you headed towards the ideal? Are you headed towards okay? Or are you in the category 3 or category 4 where you're already experiencing this line of going poor and poor outcome? Or have you started to reach crisis mode? Okay. Think about what number you are. And Cindy, to be honest, 4 months ago, what number which line would you have put yourself on?
I wowould say I was down probably between 2 and 3.
So that's where most people would put them. And most people would be closer to 3, right? A lot of times people are calling us around the level 3. So Cindy, you felt like you were on this line, number 3.
Yep.
So here's the interesting thing. Okay. So let's say you're right now where you're at right now. If you were to be falling from line 1 to line 3, would you notice?
Oh yeah.
You would notice, but you would notice, right? But a lot of people don't even notice it because the distance between line 1 and line 4 isn't that far. Okay. So a lot of people this is where I call it the frog in the hot water. So they don't notice that they're actually dropping lines because it's happening. It's happening so slowly, or it's happening fast, but it's so subtle they don't realize it because the distance just isn't that far.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to ask you this question. If this is like in the future where you were dropping from 1, 2, 3, or 4, okay? Would those changes be noticeable between the ideal and crisis? Is that a big perceivable difference? Yes.
Well, yes, I would think so. Definitely.
That's huge because the distance, and this is math, everybody. Looking at the line here, the distance on the left, which is right now between line 1 and line 4, small. Looking at the future in 8 years, the distance between line 1 and line 4, huge. And in fact, at that point, if you're trying to get from line 4 back to 1, it feels what? Impossible. Expensive. Maybe even risky. This is when people get desperate. But at the same time, if you're in crisis mode where there's all this permanent damage that's already happened, it can be impossible to go to the ideal.
Mhm.
That's the issue, and even in the poor area, if you're completely bald, no sex, pain is so horrible that you've already bedbound and you've already working little to none at that time, it would feel at that point very difficult to move from 3 to 1. Correct?
Yes.
So what I'm here to tell you is right now, this time is the closest to 1 you're ever going to be. This is a medical fact. Currently, at this moment, you're the closest to this line 1, which is ideal, as you ever will be. Because as the autoimmune timeline moves forward, the distance grows big. And here's the other thing. Look at this line. What happens is the decline to crisis is kind of like a line right there, but then it plummets. The
Mhm.
rate of accelerated decline goes up as time goes on. So it's going to go down really fast as you get farther and further in the autoimmune timeline. Okay? So there's only 3 ways out of this. There's really only 3 things that can happen from this. Number 1, there's some decisions. And what I see here is this. There are decisions that people have to make to be coasting to be moving around line 1. And what I find is in line 3 and 4, people are what I call drifting. They're not making decisions. They're just following the line and they're drifting with the line going to 3 and 4. So the difference between ideal 1 and 4 is decisions versus drifting. Okay. And so there's only 3 things that you can do here right now at the now is number 1, can you jump lines? Can you jump from line 2 to 3, which is where you were, to ideal? One option. Second option is going to be you ride the curve, which is called drifting. Okay, another word for the drift. And then the third option is, can you accelerate it? Can we accelerate? Can we accelerate any of this? So there's only 3 choices that happens with this. So example is, what are the decisions that it takes to get you to ideal? Well, the decisions that it takes to get you ideal is the 5 pillars. Okay. I have outlined in the 5 pillars, what are the exact steps that it takes to get you to ideal? And if anybody in the audience is watching this and they haven't watched the 5 pillars, write 5 pillars in chat. Our team can get it to you because there are exact decisions that you need to make, exact things that are feeding the autoimmune disease that will get you to the ideal. But the important thing about that is it's not just the content of the 5 pillars, it's the order with which you do it. The order of these decisions also matter to get you to ideal. Okay. So these are the decisions that it takes to get you to ideal. And these are the decisions that it also takes to jump from, let's say Cindy was here on line 3, to jump from line 3 to 2 is a decision. Am I going to jump the lines? Okay. Do I want to go from 3 to 1? Okay. Number 1. And number 2, do I want to jump the lines? Number 1. And number 2 is, give me 1 second. First of all, give me 1 second. Lost my train of thought. My question here is this. Do I want to jump the lines? Do I want to ride the curve? Or do I want to accelerate this? And my question for anybody who's watching this right now is, how long are you going to take before you jump the lines? Because Cindy, you were going in the line 2 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't make a decision to jump the lines, you were going to go this orange curve or this red, you were going to be on this orange curve going to 3.
Yep.
So the question I always have with people is going to be, this is the closest you're going to be to the ideal line. When are you going to jump the line? And notice this. If you jump the line right now, the distance between 3 and 1 is small, which means that it's going to be easier, it's going to be cheaper, and it's going to be more effective.
Mm-hmm.
So the sooner you intervene, the easier, cheaper, more effective that intervention is. The later you intervene, the more impossible, expensive, and risky that intervention is. So the first decision at the now that you need to make, and we asked you this question 4 months ago, which
Mm-hmm.
is, how long is it going to take before you jump the line?
I wanted to do it right away. I didn't want to delay it anymore.
Yeah.
And so I had to do it.
Because it was going to be easier, cheaper, and more effective to do it right now. The other thing is, some people will say, oh, I'm going to wait a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Well, that's going to make it a hell of a lot harder.
Yeah.
And the thing is, too, is that the longer you wait, the more permanent damage there is. And I talked about in the beginning how the progression of autoimmune disease doesn't stop just because you're stopping. Right. Some people will, and some people will even say, I'm already working part-time right now and already having some financial difficulty right now. And so I have to wait. But the thing is, waiting, like I had, and this is me, I was disabled for 1.5 years myself because of my autoimmunity. It was bad because of my own pain level. And the thing was, for people who say, well, I'm already in a state where I wasn't working at the time, you could say, oh, I can't do it because I have to wait because I'm in a financial situation. But the problem was, as I was sitting there, the financial situation was getting worse and worse and worse. So every month that every week, every month that I wasn't working, the financial hellhole was getting worse. And the funny thing is, every week and month that I was waiting, it was farther and farther away from the first line. Right. So, okay. So 4 months ago, you said, I wanted it. I'm ready to jump the line now. And here's what I think is that, yes, you can make these decisions that we outlined, the 5 pillars, and you can take 8 or 9 years trying to bounce around, figuring out how to do that. Right. But what I'm telling you is what we do is this. I like to bring the ideal and we accelerate it. Mm-hmm. How can we accelerate? Because remember, option number 3 is accelerate. Why should we take 8 years to get these results when I know exactly how to get these results in a much shorter, faster period of time to this ideal? Okay. Which is, what if we got this ideal way faster than 8 years? What if we could do this? We could already send you on your way in the next 2 to 3 months to get you just over the next year to get some of these results. Would that be worthwhile? Not just help you jump the line, but accelerate it from 8 years to what if it was 8 months for you to get these results? Would that be worthwhile to you? Would that be smart?
Hell yes.
Okay. So this is a real live example, everybody. And I'm asking you guys these questions, and I could hear I could hear a pen drop out there. Is this resonating with any of you guys? Do you guys understand this autoimmune timeline? Okay. So type in the chat if there's any ahas right now. Type in the chat. I would love to hear some feedback. Okay. So my question is then, okay, Cindy made the decision. Remember, decision is where it's at. She made the decision to jump the line 4 months ago. And and when she made that decision, what we said was, well, let's accelerate it, make it happen even faster. That's what we do with our 5 pillars and with our programs. So I would like to find out, where are you now? I'd love to know where you are right now. Okay. So let's go through some of these symptoms that you're saying. You felt like you were closer to around 3 when we started. There was increasing pain. There was limitation in your activity. There was increased sex and activity. You were still losing hair. So really, like 4 months ago, you were on the trajectory to be 3. Okay. So let's just fast forward 4 months later. This is just 4 months, not 8 years, everybody. Where are you at right now?
You mean where am I at on the scale?
Now, like where are these symptoms? What, like if you were to say where you are 1, 2, 3, 4 right now, what number would you say you are right now?
I am I'm between 1 and 2, but higher towards 1.
Okay. This is just 4 months. So tell me about what that means. You say you're pretty close to 1 in 4 months.
Yep.
What outcomes did you have that what accelerated outcomes did you get that was make you close to 1 right now?
My pain is minimal right now.
Check.
I mean, my hair is growing. It's
Hair growth.
not where I want it to be, but it's growing.
Just 4 months, lady.
I'm back to work full time.
She's back to work full time, everybody.
And yes, I now can have sex.
And sex is back. So here's the thing. This is the exact demonstration of a real life case study of somebody we spoke to 4 months ago with the autoimmune timeline. So it doesn't have to take 8 years. It doesn't have to take you kissing 1,000 frogs to try to get every single pillar. You just have to make the decision. Number one, I'm going to jump the line, right? I am not going to be riding this curve. No way, not this curve. And I'm going to accelerate this process. And instead of 8 years, how about just 4 months? That took you 4 months. So it was just 4 months. And so this is a demonstration for you guys. Cindy, thank you so much for sharing this and being a real life example. And for me, like, this is just putting on paper and showing you the exact decision process that you went through. And so, my question for you is going to be, and for everybody out there is, how long is it going to take before you jump the line? Okay. Number one. And number two, how do we make that happen even faster? So I love it. So is this resonating with anyone? And if it is, and you want to learn more about what the 5 pillars are, how do we accelerate this process? We're going to put a link in chat right now for you to chat with our team. Cindy, I want to thank you for your time. That was amazing. So I want to thank you so much. Appreciate you. Appreciate your outcomes and appreciate you volunteering as tribute. You didn't really volunteer. I called you up and I was like, Cindy, I'd love for you to be the real life example just to show people where you were 4 months ago and your decision-making process. So
I appreciate you and your program.
Thank you so much, Cindy.
Thank you.
All right. So I hope that you guys got a really good sense of what is the autoimmune timeline, what your future looks like. And it's clear as day. And I'm trying to raise my intention is to raise the medical literacy around autoimmune disease higher for all of us. I don't want us to walk around with a 12-year-old literacy in our medical condition in autoimmunity. And I certainly don't want your physicians to be walking around with that. So here's the thing, even though your physicians have no training around autoimmune disease, you're getting killer training around this. You're understanding the autoimmune timeline, and you understand that the sooner you make the decision to jump the line, the quicker, easier, cheaper, more impactful that outcome is going to be. And the later you decide to make that decision, with the permanent and progressive damage in autoimmune disease, the more expensive, the more it's impossible. Some of the stuff is impossible damage, and the more risky that outcome, the things that you have to do for that outcome becomes. And I haven't even mentioned about our kids. When you think about the autoimmune timeline, this becomes a hot topic, which is, how does the autoimmune timeline apply to our children? Well, think about this. If you think about the autoimmune timeline as Godzilla creating more and more damage all around town, which is your body, right? Do you want to kill Godzilla while he's this giant Godzilla all around town, already wrecking the power station, the restaurants, all that, the highway, ripping it out? Is that the time to intervene? Well, in your kids, think about this. Godzilla is an egg. Godzilla is an egg with your children. So think about that. Do you want to intervene before, like, your child's now, it's even before Cindy's now, right? Cindy's now, when she was a child, was 30, 30 plus years ago, right? Think about that. If you can intervene in your child 30 years before they even have the onset of autoimmune symptoms, or 10 years or 20 years before they even have these symptoms, how easy is that going to be? How cheap is that going to be? How effective is that going to be? How much permanent damage is there? Zero. So something to understand about the autoimmune timeline is this: the earlier you intervene, the more physical resiliency your body has to fix any sort of temporary damage and to bounce back. This is why in children, it's a freaking incredible opportunity to kill Godzilla while he's an egg, to intervene sooner rather than later, to jump the line when there aren't even lines to jump in your child, right? There are no lines to jump in your child. So how many of you have kids that have autoimmune issues? How many of you are in this group or watching this video where your child's the one with autoimmune disease? How many of you have autoimmune disease yourself, and yet you're already seeing the beginnings of autoimmune symptoms in your children, and you're like, I don't want to jump the line with my child. I can prevent this. And here's the thing. If you're struggling with autoimmunity, the most important thing that you can do as a parent is actually to fix your own autoimmunity. Make the decision to jump the line, to jump from 3 to 1, because you know what you're going to do is you're going to teach your child by example. There's really only 2 ways that we can really teach and intervene in our children's life, and that's either as a warning or as an example. You choose. And here's the thing: if you're sitting in line 3 or line 4, where you're in poor health or you're in crisis, we are giving our child, teaching them by warning. Don't do what your mom did, because that's how you will end up. But if you jump the line and you become the ideal, and you show them through example that your decisions and the actions that you take have an accelerated, meaningful impact, not only on your life, but on their lives, that's leading by example. And that's the kind of leadership as parents that we need to do, not teaching our kids as warnings. And I myself was a warning probably for 20 years. That's probably a little harsh, maybe 10, 15 years for my children. I was not a mom to my kids for probably the first 15 years of their lives. And I had to make this decision through my own training. I had to make decisions to invest in my own training, my own education. I had to implement, I had to do. I had to make professional decisions. I had to really change jobs. I had to do a lot of different things, decisions that I make to really jump that line. So I love the fact that I'm able to be in a position now where I can share my own personal experience with all of you. I hope this really resonated. I can share my experience with all of you. I can also share the experience of the thousands of clients that I've helped jump the line and accelerate their move to ideal. I can share their experiences with you. We have literally hundreds of testimonials, case studies on YouTube and in our Facebook group. If you want to learn more about how we can help with your specific issues or autoimmune condition, type in chat right now what some of the issues and struggles that you have. And make sure you check our messages. There are messages in Facebook. Check your message request box. After maybe a couple hours after you've commented here, our team would have reached out to hook you up with some resources, because I think people really need to see proof. They need to really understand that there really are solutions. There really is a future that could be ideal, and that future can be accelerated. So if you want that for you, go ahead and type in chat some of the symptoms and struggles that you're dealing with right now. We really have tons of case studies that we would love to share with you. So that is a wrap. I hope that you guys enjoyed this training. I can tell you this right now: I have never seen another physician offer a training like this about what the autoimmune timeline is. They just don't get it, and they don't understand. So I hope you guys really take value in this. And here's the thing: if you know somebody who could benefit from this training, tag their name right now in the comment section. If you're in the Facebook group, invite them into the Facebook group so they could see this. If you're on YouTube, share this right now. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, share this. Sharing is caring. Raising awareness is the most powerful thing that you can do if you know anyone struggling with autoimmune issues. So if you're watching from YouTube, make sure you click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. This was a thrill to do, and I'm really thankful for Cindy for joining us and for all of you for watching. I hope that this was super helpful. This really does, showing this and teaching you this really comes from the bottom of my heart, because I learned this the hard way, really learned this the hard way. And many of us have learned, and I would like to lead by example. I don't want to be a warning anymore for other people. I lead by example. So I'm thankful for sharing my experiences, and for Cindy for sharing her experiences. Cindy, I'm going to bring you back. Cindy,
Okay.
thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
If there's one thing, one message that you can give for anybody that's watching, there's probably millions of Cindys out there. If there's a millions, if there's a Cindy out there, which I'm seeing in comment section, tons of people commenting with tons of symptoms and diagnoses. What would you say to a Cindy out there who's watching right now?
Don't wait, because all you're doing is wasting your life at that point. Things just start, one autoimmune turns into two, and before you know it, you're having symptoms of 3 others. I mean, it's just, you got to do it. You got to take it. The program is excellent, and I can't believe all that I've gotten out of it already in this short amount of time. So
I'm so excited, especially the part of having sex again. Congratulations.
just do it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day.